Welcome to American Catholic History, brought to you by the support of listeners like you. If you like American Catholic History, please become a supporter at americancatholichistory.org. Also, if you don't already, be sure to follow the podcast and give us a 5-star rating and a great review wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Noelle Heaster-Crow.
And I'm Tom Crow. Now, I will pause before Noelle continues just to point out we are recording this episode, though Noelle is not quite feeling well. But we knew we had to get this out because we talked about Sister Blandina a few weeks ago and really wanted to get this one out soon. So, thank you for doing this in spite of not feeling well, Noelle.
Oh, I'm okay.
Okay.
Today we're telling part 2, to get back on topic, of the amazing story of Sister Blandina Segale, the pint-sized native of Italy who became a Sister of Charity and really had 2 major parts to her story. The first 20 years from 1872 to 1892 were spent taming a portion of the Wild West.
Yes, and what she did out there was worthy of an episode all its own.
Which is why we told it in its own episode.
Right. It just worked out that way.
Yeah.
We released that episode a few weeks ago. Sister Blandina stared down lynch mobs, ministered to dying outlaws, tamed classrooms of unruly kids, something we understand, fought injustice, and brought the light of Christ into a land where kill or be killed was, for many, the law of the land.
Yes, and by contrast, her law was love, that God may be loved. The good she did out there can still be felt and seen. But this week we're talking about the nearly 5 decades she spent in Cincinnati after she was called back from the Wild West.
An important point to bring up right at the outset here was the role her sister played.
Yeah, Sister Blandina's older sister, born Maria Maddalena, had joined the Sisters of Charity right after Blandina did. In religious life, she was given the name Justina.
One thing we didn't mention in the last episode was that Justina had also been sent to teach in the Wild West, but she was only out there for 12 years before being brought back east. She then taught in Michigan, where she learned multiple languages, including Braille, so she could teach blind children. She advocated for books with Braille to be included in the school library. After a number of years working in Michigan, she returned to Cincinnati at about the same time that Sister Blandina arrived back in that city in 1893.
And with 2 Segale women coming into town, Cincinnati had no idea what was about to hit it.
Nope. But they had a few years before the impact was felt. Blandina and Justina lived fairly ordinary lives as Sisters of Charity for about 4 years after returning, living at the Sisters of Charity Mother House and teaching at schools the sisters ran. But this all changed when a surge of immigration from Italy changed everything.
Right. Both sisters were born in northern Italy near Genoa. They'd come to Cincinnati when Blandina was 4 back in 1854. So when the Italian population in Cincinnati started to swell, these 2 Italian-born Sisters of Charity were suited to help. The Italians coming to the U.S. during this time were similar to waves of Irish who had arrived over the previous 4 or 5 decades. They were fleeing upheaval in their native country, they were in poverty, they didn't know how to live in this new place, and they were easily taken advantage of. One additional disadvantage that the Italians had was that they didn't speak English.
Now, to be fair, plenty of the Irish didn't speak English either. Many spoke primarily Gaelic, and those who did speak English spoke a dialect that would have seemed like a foreign language to Americans.
It still does sometimes.
Yeah, hey now.
Either way, both had language and cultural barriers that made their assimilation difficult. Many were preyed upon by unscrupulous men of business. Many left the Catholic faith because Protestant churches were targeting them with significant social services that no Catholic parish or other institution was offering at that time.
Even the Knights of Columbus was only just getting going at this point, so there just wasn't a good infrastructure of Catholic institutions to help families in need to fill their basic needs: lodging, food, connection to good jobs, and society at large. The Archbishop of Cincinnati, Henry Elder, saw this problem, as did Sisters Blandina and Justina, and their Mother Superior, Mother Mary Blanche.
Well, in 1897, Mother Mary Blanche pulled Sister Justina aside one day and asked her if she and her sister, Sister Blandina, would be able to do something for these Italian immigrants in need. She told Sister Justina that she had seen them during prayer kneeling next to each other and thought to approach them to take on this issue.
Now, Sister Justina said that she and Blandina had discussed this exact same problem and had intended to approach the Mother Superior about volunteering for this work.
So that coincidence was an affirmation of sort. Then, lending more affirmation was the fact that Archbishop Elder had asked Mother Superior if she had sisters who might be able to start a school for the children of these Italian immigrants.
And,
Lots
well,
of great minds thinking alike,
absolutely, because yes, she did. Mother Mary Blanche sent the two sisters Segale to see Archbishop Elder. He asked them to see if they could do anything for the poor Italian immigrants. And, well, he couldn't send them away empty-handed. He gave them $5 to start their work.
Right. Well, to be fair, with inflation, that works out to around $200 today. So, yeah, it wasn't that much.
Yeah. But that didn't deter them. In fact, it could be said that Blandina found comfort in having so little to start with. Sister Blandina wrote, quote, "We begin to realize that no good work can succeed without its cross, for that is the seal of him who died on the cross. If it is his work, it will succeed despite all opposition. If it is not his work, we do not want it to succeed. But it is manifestly his work, so we do not fear, though we have nothing to begin with. We picked up a penny on the street. It shall be the nucleus of the fund for the purchase of a house. St. Teresa, when undertaking a certain foundation without means, said something to this effect: a few pennies and Teresa are nothing. A few pennies, Teresa, and God are omnipotent. This has been our inspiration, and so I have written as our motto, a penny and two sisters are nothing. A penny, two sisters, and God are omnipotent."
I think I need to frame that quote.
Hang it somewhere, yeah.
Yes, yes. So, with this determination to do whatever it would take and their scant cash on hand, they set off for where the Italian immigrants were. But even though Sisters Blandina and Justina were Italian, it wasn't always easy for them to gain the trust of their fellow Italian immigrants.
Right. The sisters, as we said, were from Genoa, which is in the northern part of Italy. Most of the new immigrants were from southern Italy and Sicily. So in order to prove that they were trustworthy and virtuous, Sisters Blandina and Justina would often take other women or young girls along with them, girls whom they knew and who were already known in the Italian immigrant community. This tactic worked well. Once trust was gained, the immigrants began to bring all of their problems to the sisters.
We already mentioned one of the concerns, that many of the Italians who were historically Catholic were becoming Protestant because of the greater social services offered by the Episcopal and Methodist churches.
Now, to be completely accurate, these Protestant churches weren't simply offering social services and then offering an invitation to come to their religious services to those who happened to come by.
Right. A fair number of these ministers would actively, intentionally target Italian Catholics. They would go to their homes, befriend them, and use aggressive tactics to tempt them away from the Catholic faith. At least one of these Protestant ministers told Sister Justina point blank that he did this, and that he regarded Catholicism as no religion at all. So the sisters were up against that.
The second issue the sisters set out to address was very tied into the first one. It was that the Italians, though baptized and raised Catholic, were so poorly catechized that they really had no knowledge of why they should remain Catholic. When one of these highly educated, slick-talking Protestant ministers came around and offered material assistance and then started pushing their anti-Catholic talking points, the Italians were not equipped to see the flaws in their arguments or their facts.
And this also was actually another issue that the Irish immigrants had.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, when they came over.
Countries where being Catholic is part of the national identity produce a lot of Catholics who are Catholic because they're Irish or Italian or French or Spanish or whatever nationality. Any of them may know the faith and love it and embrace it for itself, but plenty of them really couldn't care less about the faith. They just want the social benefit that came with being Catholic. Well, once they were in a place where there was more social benefit to being Methodist or Episcopalian, they changed teams. That, of course, did not sit well with Sisters Blandina and Justina at all.
No. So, and I love this about them being a catechist myself. They made catechesis a main focus. They did whatever it took to keep their fellow Italians in the fold and whatever it took to win back those souls who had left the true church. They started teaching catechism to as many confirmation-aged children as they could and encouraging their parents to become better catechized as well. But catechesis wasn't enough. They knew they had to begin to offer more social services, help with housing, learning the language, finding jobs, filling their bellies. Well, these things were needed too.
Yeah. And this actually harkens back to one of the stories from the previous episode about Sister Blandina. While in the West, Sister Blandina nursed a wounded outlaw back to health after all doctors in town had refused to treat him. She didn't go to him to evangelize or catechize, just to care. Eventually, he started asking her about her faith. Then she gladly answered questions and taught him prayers. Before he died, he made an act of contrition, and he died saying the prayers she taught him. But long before he died, he told Sister that he started asking about her faith because he noticed how much she cared for him without preaching. He said if she just preached, he'd have sent her away. But since she showed him that she cared for him for so long, regardless of whether or not he was Catholic, he felt compelled to ask her about her faith.
Right, and so the sisters took a similar approach here. Do the thing that is needed. Let God convert the hearts. What was needed in this case were services that would help the Italians to improve their living conditions and economic prospects. If the sisters could deliver these services all in the name of the love of Christ coming through the Catholic Church, the faith may well be saved in the person. So in 1897, with nothing more than that $5 given to them by Bishop Elder.
And the penny they found on the sidewalk.
Yes, let's not forget the penny. The sisters established the Santa Maria Institute and its Italian educational and industrial home. It was a place where Italian immigrants could learn English, get help finding housing and jobs, and more. Eventually, they had a home where the mothers and children in crisis situations could find the support they needed and offered so many other services, both secular and sacred.
The work was a constant struggle, but a joyful one. They were constantly looking for rooms to hold classes, bringing volunteers into their work, cajoling priests and laity for donations, and of course, working directly with those who needed the help.
But Sister Blandina didn't limit herself to the Italian immigrants who were in trouble in the city. There were brothels in the city, and she stood up against them as well.
Right. It is said that young women would be enticed from farms out in the countryside to come to the city with promises of good-paying jobs and housing, enabling them to live well and send money back home. I mean, in the most technical sense, the offer wasn't a lie.
But leaving out the detail that it was a brothel was unkind. That's a mild word.
Yes.
Sister Blandina found out about one such girl and at first confronted the madam who controlled her, threatening to have the girl testify in court. But the madam fed a story to the news about a religious sister coming to her to extort money, and Blandina's superior, not wanting to endure negative publicity, ordered her to stand down. She obeyed, but she made it part of her mission to aid and rescue women who managed to escape from the clutches of that evil industry.
And that included visiting the ward of the hospital where women who were infected with the sorts of diseases one acquires in such work were treated and hopefully eventually released. Sister Blandina went there as an angel of mercy to bring the hope of Christ for a better future and a promise that God still loved them and wanted the best for them.
The sisters also worked with the courts and the juvenile justice system to directly help youth who got into criminal mischief. Sister Blandina went so far as to become a juvenile probation officer herself, so youth could be released directly into her care rather than being sent into the juvenile justice system.
The Santa Maria Institute also offered clubs for boys and girls like the Boy Scouts. These clubs served a dual purpose, to keep boys off the street and out of gangs, and also to offer Catholic entertainment for children. This again was something that the Protestant churches were doing and were gaining converts through them. So the sisters did it too.
After World War I, the sisters saw another affront to the Catholic faith of the people they worked with in the form of Americanization classes. Americanization classes were an effort happening all across the country to get immigrants to act and think more as Americans than as people from their home nation or culture. Now, Americanization isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can be depending on what one means by Americanization. Let's start by pointing out that these classes were generally not held at Catholic institutions.
And they generally included classes on how to be a good Protestant, because to many people, to be a good American, one had to be a good Protestant.
Yeah, and once again, the sisters were having none of that. So they took the parts of the Americanization classes that did not offend the faith and began teaching those classes through the Santa Maria Institute.
Regarding these classes, Sister Blandina made some remarks at a celebration of George Washington's birthday in 1921. According to Sister Justina's journal, Sister Blandina, quote, said that the Santa Maria was training Italians for Americanization, and as the most effective means to do so as to make them loyal, we begin by making them loyal to God, faithful to their religion, for one who is a traitor to God cannot be relied upon to be loyal to the government.
The sisters would continue their absolutely tireless work for decades. In the 1920s, the Santa Maria Institute purchased a Model T Ford to assist with their work. This meant, of course, that Sister Blandina would need to drive. So she learned to drive. And she was in her 70s at this point.
Still going where she was sent and doing what needed to be done.
But now doing so as fast as a Tin Lizzie could carry
That's
her.
awesome. I can only imagine the sight of an elderly nun less than 5 feet tall in full habit, zipping around town behind the wheel of a Model T. Clear the streets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man.
When some humorous story came out of them having that car, in May 1923, Sister Justina shares a story about the Model T being stolen and the scandal which nearly broke because of the contents of the car at the time of the theft.
Yes, this is hilarious. It seems they were getting low on wine for Mass. Now, mind you, this was during Prohibition, so only those with special permission and a special license could make, purchase, or possess wine for sacramental purposes. One of their helpers, a respected professor named Di Girolamo, shared lodging with a man who had a license to make wine for sacramental purposes. Di Girolamo said he would bring a jug later that evening so there would be some for the morning Mass, so he borrowed the car to make the trip home quicker. When he returned that evening for the Americanization class at night school, he didn't have time to empty the When he returned that evening for the Americanization night school, he didn't have time to empty the contents of the car, so he just parked it in the garage. In the car at the time was a jug of wine, plus some clothes that had been donated for the sisters to distribute, along with Professor Di Girolamo's papers and a list of names of his pupils.
But that night, the car was stolen from the garage and taken for a joyride. The next morning, the police found it. The sisters found out it had been stolen because a reporter had learned from the police that they were watching this car to see who would come for it. When no one did, they took it to the police headquarters where they examined the contents and ascertained that it belonged to the Santa Maria Institute. This reporter's story, which he was calling the sisters to get confirmation of, read, "An auto abandoned was found on 8th Street. Letters addressed to Professor Di Girolamo and names of many Italian men and women, a jug of wine and men's and women's clothes strewn around indicate that a party had had a joyride. The auto belonged to the Santa Maria Institute. It appears that these prominent Italian citizens are implicated in this nocturnal ride."
Sister Blandina explained everything to the reporter, and the story didn't run. The sisters had their car returned, but the only person arrested was Professor Di Girolamo for possession of the wine. Sister Justina quipped that it was odd that more fuss was made over the jug of wine than over their car being stolen, and that Professor Di Girolamo was unjustly arrested for the wine, especially since he never drank, not even before Prohibition. The record doesn't show what became of Professor DiGirolamo, as Sister Justina's account ends with, "The professor's unblemished reputation should save him from such unworthy attacks." We certainly hope it turned out right for him.
For sure.
Yeah.
Another rather fascinating part of Sister Blandina's story was her role in helping move along the canonization of the first American-born saint, Elizabeth Ann Seton. In 1931, Sister Blandina traveled to Rome to advocate for Mother Seton's canonization. Mother Seton, of course, had founded the Sisters of Charity. Clearly, Sister Blandina was effective in this, as in other efforts, because in 1975, Elizabeth Ann Seton was declared a saint in heaven.
Sister Justina served as the official historian of Santa Maria. She wasn't the stem-winder of a storyteller that her younger sister was, but she kept meticulous journals about the goings-on of the Santa Maria Institute until her death in 1929. Sister Blandina would retire from the grueling daily schedule of the Santa Maria Institute in 1933 and live for another 8 years at the Mother House, dying in 1941 at a feisty 91 years old.
But the work of the Santa Maria Institute has carried on, becoming one of the largest and most successful social service organizations, certainly in the state of Ohio. Its work has expanded well past the Italian community, embracing those flocking to Cincinnati from Kentucky and other parts of Appalachia to work in the factories during World War II, and as time has marched on to other immigrant and disadvantaged communities.
The organization became an independent nonprofit agency in 1972 named Santa Maria Community Services, but the same principles hold true. Find people where they are and do what is needed to help them improve their lot. They let the love of Christ inform and compel the work and let God work on hearts. Today, Santa Maria Community Services helps more than 3,000 people annually.
In 2014, the Archdiocese of Santa Fe opened Sister Blandina's cause for canonization. So, Sister Blandina, already known as the fastest nun in the West, can also be called Servant of God. No word on Sister Justina's cause, but hopefully one day we will all be able to call Sister Blandina Saint Blandina Segale. This has been American Catholic History. If you enjoy American Catholic History, please become a supporter. We've got great perks for supporters. Get information on how to become a supporter and the perks at americancatholichistory.org/support.
Also on our website, sign up for our newsletter, learn more about Sister Blandina Segale, see about our pilgrimages, and find other great stories from American Catholic history.
We also love the great reviews our listeners leave. Those and the 5-star ratings help others find us. You can email us feedback, questions, tips for episode topics, or other comments at feedback@americancatholichistory.org. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/American Catholic History, on Instagram at ACH_podcast, and follow us on Twitter at ACH1513. I'm Noelle Heaster-Crow.
And I'm Tom Crow.
Thanks for listening to American Catholic History, brought to you by the support of listeners like you.